Hey everyone, it's Belushi here, and as you can tell by the title of this video, this is going to be a commentary deep dive, deep dive on Jellycat and the Jellycat brand, and the Jellycat Plushies. And so we're basically just going to be taking a look through about some of like the background of Jellycat as a company, kind of like a little bit of like where they started and then moving into sort of like different like maybe not so much like controversies, but some of the issues like the company has had, as well as some of the really great successes that the company has had with their plushies, and then going really into the plushies themselves. I do have some Jellycats here with me to kind of go over the quality and what to expect from Jellycats, and then the bottom line of like who I think Jellycats are best suited to. Before I'll get this out of the way now, I mean, I think plush in general is great for children as well as adults. But yeah, just going into more of sort of the nitty gritty of like who I think maybe would like it more, or as well as safety things. Like I know some plushies are better for babies than others, and like I feel like that's something worth speaking about, but also kind of like the production quality too, of like just overall as a plushie of how good their plushies are designed. And so starting off, Jellycat as a company, Jellycat Incorporated, I believe it's referred to, is a company that started off in 1999. And it was started by brothers William and Thomas Gattaker. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. I only was able to find what William looks like from one of the awards that they had won, and he had done a video accepting it, and I think he's also been just a little bit more front-facing to the media than his brother Thomas. And the original idea for Jellycats actually came from Thomas's 7-year-old son at the time. Talked about jellies and then animals like cats and stuff like that, I guess, and helps them to come up with the name of the company, Jellycat. It's sort of like a whimsical, cute little title in order to describe the stuffed animals. But yeah, Jellycats itself is a company. They sell a wide variety of their plush toys, soft toys, as well as they also sell books and other toys and things like that. Geared more towards children, I think, but obviously the stuffed animals have grown widely in popularity to adults as well. So, myself included, as a 23-year-old woman. But yeah, and so some of the first plush that they had released, I will put some pictures here of ones that I found up for sale from 1999, but obviously started with the plushies being just very unique in style, and it caught attention of a lot of early on like smaller investors and things like that. So that was pretty cool. So it was in 2001 when they expanded into Minneapolis, making Jellycat Incorporated, and it is a privately owned company, which is something pretty interesting. It's not owned by like a much larger toy manufacturer or company that like Goond or anything like that. So that's also pretty cool about the Jellycat brand. As well as just the fact that they just have really interesting designs as well. Some of them are a little bit more basic compared to others as far as like the animals. Yeah. And as far as where Jellycats are sold, they're sold all across or globally. They are sold in the US, the UK, since they started in London. I don't know if I mentioned that before, but it was London in the UK. And then they are also sold in Canada, Asia, and different parts of Europe, other than just the UK, and then Australia as well. And their most popular design is by far the Bashful Bunny. I'll insert a picture over here, which was released in 2007, and that's predominantly one of the most notable designs that they're known for. for that bunny rabbit. There's definitely a lot of different variations of that bunny, and it's very, very popular. And then going from that, they are designed, all of the plush toys are designed in the UK, in London, and I think branching off a little bit depending for their design team. And then they're all manufactured out of China. All right, I'm going to insert this in between wherever I said where, for if you just look up like where Jellycats are manufactured, it says in China. But a lot of these guys, like these have Vietnam, that they were made in Vietnam, twice on them, for the tags, and he also has that he was made in Cambodia. So that's very interesting. But I'm just gonna give like a blanket statement overall to correct that, because from my research it's saying China, and as far as like the imports that they get, but I just wanted to note that here of that it does say, I don't know how well you can see that, but it does say made in Cambodia there, and then these both say made in Vietnam on them. So just something to be aware of, I guess. I think the predominant territory or district from China that they get their shipments from is called Yantian. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly as well. But as far as what I could find, for, as obviously the cost of Jellycats is quite a bit higher than as something like opposed to like Squishmallows or other stuffed animals, stuffed toys. Basically, it is a little bit pricier, depending on which ones you are getting, and obviously the sizing and the quality is definitely a little bit better. Just to give you a sneak peek of that, there aren't too many manufacturing mistakes, so people typically believe them to be a pretty ethical company. I couldn't dive much more into as far as exactly how they are made and what manufacturers they use in China, but we can only assume, as far as like their reputation online, that they are ethically sourced and produced, from the pricing, and then also from other associates like chiming in, from like customer service and things like that. They do treat their company or their employees well and by livable wages. So I would hope that transfers over to China, and I'm sure it does, like I said, from just by the basis of the quality of the plush. But yeah, and then as far as the fabrics, a lot of them are made quite differently. I don't know as much as far as like how environmentally friendly they are, because a lot of them do use plastic, like plastic pellets in their butts. So I would say it's probably not the most sustainable. However, the different varieties that they use do make them more of a sensory experience for children. And as far as them being really soft and just having it different, like, I guess, aesthetically pleasing features for the different fabrics that they do have. So that's kind of fun. But yeah, I wouldn't say probably the most friendly to the earth, but as a plush, very, very nice. And as far as the plushies that Jellycat sells, they release 2 collections every year. So twice a year there's new collections released. And all the designs, I would say, are pretty unique. Something like this is probably a little bit more, I mean, he's pretty unique too, but some of the animals are kind of like more of a basic look to them, or like they have like the Amusables, and those were released in 2018, I believe. But those are more so of like food items, just with like the little signature like little Jellycat face, and then they have little limbs coming out from different food items. But yeah, and I think one of the most signature things is probably the fabric and the feel, and then the little beans in their butt, the little plastic pellets. But yeah, here's this little pterodactyl guy. He's so cute. Yeah, and they also come in a variety of different sizes. I'll put a little picture over here, but ranging anywhere from 13 centimeters to 108 centimeters. And it goes from like tiny to very big, I think is how they kind of like institute that size range. But yeah, and they also have like different personalized ones that you can get, and the different animals, like I had said before, and they go down into like clothed animals that are more like holiday themed, or just like more like whimsical and unique, with the clothing items that they have on to make sort of a cuter, more fun plushie. It's also worth noting that they do put their plushies through pretty rigorous safety testing and things like that to make sure that they are safe for children. And they do also include as to whether or not it is good for children under 12 months. So for babies and things like that, they do make notes of that. So definitely, I would say if you are looking into buying JellyCats, to just make sure if it is for a baby that it's going to be safe for that baby or that child, just based off of their recommendations, just because small parts is definitely like a worry of like a choking hazard. But yeah, and then going more into the retailers that sell JellyCats, so they do have some larger ones like Amazon and Nordstrom, as well as the paper store, but a lot of them are also like independent businesses or like smaller businesses as well that sell JellyCats. So that's pretty fun. Oh, and Learning Express is another one, big here in the USA at least, that sells quite a few JellyCats. That's where I actually found both of these little guys. I was very lucky to get them. But yeah, so it's pretty widely sold, probably not as much as Squishmallows as far as like grocery stores here in the US, but pretty widely available. And then moving into some of the maybe like controversies or things surrounding JellyCats, which is not, I wouldn't say it's quite that vast. I think JellyCats, in my personal opinion, is a very great company. I think that you're bound to have some bumps in the road as a company, especially for how big they have become and how many plushies they do sell. But I feel like it's worth putting into note of like just some of the things that they've had happen and kind of like going a little bit deeper into that. Anyways, though, for larger companies, it is pretty common for people to feel like, especially with more simple designs, that people have stolen their plushie designs from smaller creators. And they did run into the only one that I could find that was like, I guess maybe had like some credit to it, but is also not pursuing anything against Jellycat any longer, as far as claims that I can tell, since the TikToks were deleted that this creator posted. But it was TikTok creator CC or Chatneer, I think. I'll put that here as well. But she had made designs very similar to the fast food designs that they released, I think towards August of 2022, and she had sent her designs in previous years, I think, or maybe like in 2021 is when she had sent it in, and had some different email exchanges with the company. But yeah, I was only able to find a little bit of like screenshots from a different TikTok of the designs, the supposed designs that I think that were there. Like I said, I'm not entirely sure. However, it has since kind of died down that the creator has made any claims against the company, just because that TikTok is deleted, and there are other TikToks up on their page as well where they do have videos of JellyCats previously to that time that they had posted that video talking about how much they love them, or at least just like searching for them. So it is interesting, and Jellycat had said in response to it, in the emails, that basically they had already been working on the fast food collection, and so it was already in the works by the time the creator had sent their designs. It's kind of hard to say whether or not Jellycat did take the designs, but based off of the claims from the creator getting rescinded or retracted, based off of them taking their TikTok down, not their account, but the TikTok that they posted in regards to them stealing their designs, and I can't seem to find any trace of them claiming that any longer. I think it's safe to say that that issue is at rest. And so the next sort of controversial occurrence or happening for Jellycat was their case against Kmart, which I think is still ongoing. But it's about their Resoftables, and Kmart had created a bunny that looked very similar to the Jellycat Bashful Bunny. And given that that is their most popular toy, I do think it's fair of like the design of Kmart's is similar. Then again, it's also a bunny, so it's not like the most distinguishable. But I will say, like, Kmart did end up changing the design a bit as far as the fabric for the fur. They still have the original pictures up on the Resoftables website. But when you actually click onto the rabbit design, it does show that they've changed it. So there must have been some sort of reason to believe that it is a bit too close perhaps to Jellycat's Bashful Bunny. That said, it's just kind of like, it's kind of difficult as well because the fact that Jellycats, their Bashful Bunnies are about like $35 as comparatively to the Kmart rabbits, which are $14. And so it's kind of like selling a similar thing as like a bootleg, which is very common in America, to copy off of things and then resell it for cheaper. So it's definitely a very like heavily convoluted issue. I think that the Resoftables brand within itself, I think if they're able to go further away from Jellycat's designs and make a settlement within court, I think all will be said and done. And I do think that there probably will be a settlement between the two. But who's to say? I don't know exactly like the design, like what rights Jellycats has and like patents as far as like to Kmart of how much they will get out of the lawsuit. But I do think there is validity there as far as like also within the countries that Jellycat is predominantly known for being pretty popular in, as far as like the UK and Australia, is also a big place for Kmart. In the US, Kmarts are here, but they're not quite as popular as I think I've seen people posting videos in places like Australia. So it is interesting that they made something so similar and like selling at a different price, and like I don't know, but I do think there will be some sort of conclusion to come there. But yeah, I think that the Resoftables brand also, it is worth noting that they are made from recycled plastics, so I do think that's something to add to the argument as well of I do think that's really cool of them to do that and to sell it for $14. I'm not sure quite where they are manufactured or how ethically sourced they are in comparison to Jellycats, perhaps based off of the price differences. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting thing to note in this video as far as some things of people trying to perhaps emulate Jellycats based off how popular they are. and specifically the bunnies. Alrighty, and then moving into successes of the company. So recently in 2020, they did earn a Greats Award, or like the Greats, based off of, I think, their retail awards. But that's where I had found the photo of William from. And he genuinely seems like a really nice guy from that video. And I do think Jellycats deserve a lot of praise. I think that even with like the little bits of like controversies that they've had, I think they're a really upstanding company. And I hope they really win more awards in the future, because I think they really deserve it. And then moving into another great thing that they recently had done is the Jellycat Diner that opened in New York City in September of this year, with the grand opening, I believe, was on September 23rd. Which I really want to go, so I hope it's open whenever I get to make a trip to New York City, because it looks really awesome. I'll put a picture over here, but it's basically designed like a cute little 50s diner, and you can order your meal, which is basically all Jellycats. And then also, like, referring to their social media presence, I think the NYC Diner has been pretty noticed by a lot of different creators, but also their marketing and Instagram team themselves, I think, for Jellycat, do some really cute things. I do really like their marketing style. I do think they do a little bit less promotion, I think, than like Squishmallows does, at least in the US. Obviously with like Mallow Mash and things, really big like prizes and giveaways and stuff like that. But I also think it's more of like, because Jellycat is such an esteemed brand, I think perhaps maybe they see it as more like classical and simple with their plushies. So that kind of transfers over to the marketing. Yeah, so I do think they have built up their reputation a lot to be very beloved by many people, and I think it's very well deserved. But for the rarities and the collectability of Jellycats, I do think that there is also like less like rarities per se, but they definitely have some that like have not been re-released, or at least are like retired, that are a little bit more pricey, I guess, if you're trying to look to buy them, just because they were discontinued or retired. So I know a lot of the bunnies can fetch some high prices. I think specifically Buttercup Bunny was one of the ones I found that ranged from like $250 to $350. I think that's also depending on the size. And then also Chloe the Clam, I know, is another one that I frequently have seen being sold for like $150 or like $110. So it is interesting, I think, of like Squishmallows, which I would say are arguably not as perhaps high valued plushies, of like, they don't have the same like intricacies to them for Squishmallows, since they are more like a pillow sort of plush, and they're not sort of like, this takes a little bit more time, effort, and money, I think, to make plushies like this. But yet Squishmallows, some of them are so rare that it's like they are worth thousands of dollars. So interesting. But yeah, and I do think it is also with the amount of designs Squishmallows can put out as opposed to the amount of designs Jellycat can put out is much different. So that is also worth noting as far as like for the rarities of like. And then I also don't think that Jellycat so much sees it as being worth it if they're only going to sell a certain amount of a design, as far as like if they could just keep reproducing designs that are well loved by people, instead of also doing like, there's only 2,000 of these and there's only 3,000 of these, where I think Squishmallows, that's more so in their wheelhouse to do things like that. So, but yeah, they definitely get compared a lot, I would say, on social media. That is another popular thing of like, oh, are you a Squishmallow girl? Are you a Jellycat girl? Which I don't see too many other plushie brands being compared like that. But I definitely think it's just both brands I think are really great. I think both plush are really great. It just depends on what you are looking for and kind of like for collective wise of what you're looking for too. Alrighty, then getting into the quality of the plush. So let's take a look at this guy here. This is, I want to say, this is Robbie, okay. And the pricing for him, I bought him at a Learning Express, was $17.99. And I believe that's probably pretty close to the Jellycat pricing. They typically come with this nice little tag that has Jellycats. And then with another one, if it's like, I mean, this is the Learning Express tag. And then it comes with the little tush tags that also can tell you as well as like if it is suitable for children. So this is like suitable from birth. And then it gives some other details about like where it was made. Which these were actually made in Vietnam, which I inserted another clip earlier to let you guys know that. So that's interesting. But yeah, it says all new material, polyester fibers / plastic pellets. So yeah, probably not the most sustainable that they could be. But yeah, that's pretty much, I don't know if you can see that very well, but pretty much the little details that they give. But as you can see, the multiple seams that are on him look pretty good. There's no loose stitching. I do think it's interesting of like his back is really curved, but so is this one as far as the sewing. And then their little limbs, I would say they are very tightly sewn, and I do think the wear and tear of these is pretty good, minus maybe like with the little limbs of like the feet. I could see these getting worn at some point and perhaps coming undone after years and years and years. But to be fair, I'm also not going to be cuddling these at night. I really like that they have a pretty good amount of beans in their butt. Sorry, my nails are so ugly. I have a really hard time with gel nails, and then I like to peel them off. But the beans in their butt make them really nice for display, especially just with these guys, with them being a little bit more top heavy. But they are also really soft. So it's a pretty soft polyester, and then they have the embroidery on the top too. Looks pretty nice as well. And then the little bow is very nicely sewn on, and then the little eyes and the little mouth looks really good, which is embroidered too. But overall, a very nicely made plush, I think, as well as like with the top is pretty well sewn on there, and it also creates a really cute aesthetic of like a beret for him, including like for him as well. He kind of looks a little bit more frumpy, which is fun. But they also have little tails, which is funny too. So I think definitely for like creativity for these designs is especially very strong there. And then as well, like for him, he's very, very cute. I think his design is pretty unique for a frog, just because he's so chunky, and he's very distinguishable, I think. Just as the same as I feel like these guys are very distinguishable. Their counterparts within the mushroom collection are also similar in like the colors of like how they're pretty distinguishable of like I think they're pink and like an orange. Yeah, so really like them. I think The only criticisms I might have is the fact that they are, I would say, like, you might have to get a bigger size as far as like for being really cuddly. Like these, I just don't really see like as like a cuddly thing as like, whereas like a Squishmallow, like this one is pretty big and like easier for me to cuddle. But that's also based off of preference too. I would say like tactile wise and like sensory wise, these are probably going to be better than a Squishmallow with the parts that they have. But yeah, and I think also like if you're definitely looking for a lot of their baby stuff, as far as little plush that just have like little blankies on them, I think are more suited to babies than I would say other plushie brands. Plus you can get books that match with a lot of the plush that they have, which I think is really cute, as far as for little kids too, learning how to read. I think, as well as the fact that probably the more like simplistic, like classy look to a lot of the Jellycats is something worth noting as well. If you are looking, it depends on what kind of look you're going for, what your kid likes, and for what you like as an adult. I think Jellycats, honestly, I would see even more well suited to adults for plushie collecting. But it is like all in what your aesthetic is. I personally just really like the aesthetics of Jellycats, in addition to the other plushies that I collect, just because I do feel like, especially with the sizing differences and the attention to detail as far as like how the sizing incorporates into whatever kind of animal they're doing or food that they're doing, and it definitely gives more realism and more of like a sensory experience with these little guys. And I do think it's easier to differentiate between them, which is fun, instead of like Squishmallows obviously have their very like, I would say, staple design of what they follow, and I do think Jellycats follow a certain style as well, but I think they get a little bit more creative with it, just based off of whatever individual plushie they're designing, which is just a different look at things. Not to say that Squishmallows is not as creative or anything, but yeah, but that's pretty much all I think that I have for you guys on these. I think as more come out, I will definitely be collecting more. But I think it is interesting just to do a deep dive on plushies, especially if you're looking to collect these guys. It is worth noting that they are expensive. Naturally, these guys are, like, I think is, I think he was about $26, I want to say, which is not the worst, but it's definitely not like some Squishmallows you can buy literally are $5. Some of them are getting more expensive though now, which I hope means something better for where they do come from and are manufactured from, as far as for livable wages. But I don't really know too much about where Squishmallows come from, and in fact of like where the Jellycats come from, because I thought they came from China, but then they say they're made in different places, so I don't know. They're all Asian countries, so I guess it's there for you of like to think a little bit about it, based off of how much they pay their employees from the pricing. But yeah, I think I'll definitely, like I said, be collecting a lot more of these little guys just because of how whimsical and fun they are. Yeah. And like, please let me know if you have more knowledge on Jellycats, or if I missed something that you think is worth including in the comments down below. I would love to hear. Also, if you have other plushie brands you guys would like me to look into and do a video like this on, as well as let me know if you collect Jellycats. But yeah, other than that, I hope you are having a great day wherever you are in the world. And if you'd like to see more videos like this one, please like and subscribe. Yeah, bye guys.